The cantina smelled like burnt metal and old regrets. Veko sat alone in the corner, his 6 arms wrapped around a drink that had gone cold hours ago. His shell had faded from bright blue to dull gray over the years. The scars across his chest told stories he never wanted to remember. Thornax Station was a place for the forgotten. Veterans from a dozen species came here to drink and forget. Some had fought in the border wars. Others had survived the hegemony campaigns. All of them carried ghosts. Veko watched the door. He always watched the door. Old habits from the war never died. A young Drellian female entered the cantina. She was small, barely past her molting years. Her shell was still bright green. Unmarked by battle or time, she carried a recording device and looked around with wide, curious eyes. Veko knew what she was before she even approached him. A journalist. They came sometimes, looking for war stories. Most veterans sent them away. War was not entertainment. The young female spotted him and walked over. Her steps were careful, respectful. She stopped at his table and bowed her head slightly. "Elder Veko?" she asked. "I am Tila, from the Galactic Archives. I was told you served with humans during the frontier wars." Veko's grip tightened on his glass. The other veterans in the cantina had gone quiet. Even the music seemed to fade. "Who told you that?" Veko asked. His voice was rough like stones grinding together. "Many sources," Tila said. "Your name appears in old military records. You were assigned to a joint defense force on Kareth 7. You fought alongside the human shock battalions." Veko said nothing. He stared at his drink. Tila sat down across from him without asking permission. "The young were always bold. I am documenting stories from the frontier wars. The archives want a complete record of what happened. Your account would be valuable." Valuable. Veko made a sound like grinding metal. It was the Drellian version of a bitter laugh. "You want entertainment. You want exciting tales of battle and glory. You want to hear how brave the soldiers were. I want the truth," Tila said. Veko finally looked at her. His compound eyes studied her face for a long moment. She did not look away. There was something honest in her expression. "The truth about humans is not entertaining," Veko said slowly. "It is a warning. Every species in this galaxy should know what humans are capable of. Not so they can admire them, so they can fear them properly." Tila leaned forward. "Then tell me. Help me make the galaxy understand." The cantina was completely silent now. Veko noticed that other veterans had moved closer. A Korthan with a missing arm. A Balaxian whose scales were burned away on half his body. A Tremari who sat in a hover chair because his legs had been destroyed in battle. They all wanted to hear. "I see you have an audience," Tila said quietly. "They know," Veko replied. "They have heard fragments, rumors. They want to know if the stories are true. Are they?" Veko was quiet for a long time. Memories rose up like dark water. He had spent 30 cycles trying to forget. But some things could never be forgotten. "The humans have a saying," Veko finally said. "War is hell. I heard them say it many times. They would laugh when they said it, like it was a joke only they understood." He took a long drink. The liquid burned going down. "They were wrong," Veko continued. "Hell would be a mercy compared to what I witnessed. Hell has rules. Hell has limits. Humans do not." Tila activated her recording device. "Start from the beginning. Tell me everything." Veko closed his eyes. He was no longer in the cantina. He was back on Kareth 7, 30 cycles younger, watching his world fall apart. "I was a supply officer," he began. "Young and stupid. I had never seen real combat. Kareth 7 was supposed to be a safe assignment. A mining colony on the edge of civilized space. Nothing ever happened there." He opened his eyes. Then the hegemony came. The veterans around him shifted uncomfortably. Everyone remembered the hegemony, the empire that had tried to conquer half the galaxy. The war had lasted 15 cycles and killed billions. "The hegemony sent a full invasion force," Veko said. 15,000 soldiers against our garrison, of 1,000. We had miners and engineers. They had trained killers. We sent distress signals. But help was weeks away. We prepared to die. Tila was writing notes alongside her recording. But you survived. Because of the humans. Vecco's voice dropped lower. There was a small human military unit stationed on Kareth 7. Only 12 soldiers. They were there to protect human mining interests. When the invasion began, I thought they would evacuate. They were so few. What could 12 humans do against 15,000? He made that grinding laugh again. I was a fool. I did not understand what humans were. The Korthen veteran spoke up. His voice was damaged, whispering and harsh. Tell her about when you first saw them fight. Vecco nodded slowly. The humans gathered in the command center. I watched them from across the room. They were small creatures. No armor on their skin. No claws or fangs. Their bodies looked soft and weak. I felt sorry for them. I thought they would die first. He paused, remembering. Then their leader spoke. A human called Park Do-hun. He was calm and quiet. He smiled at his soldiers like they were going on a pleasant trip. He said only one thing. We hold until evacuation. No one dies today except them. Tila frowned. That sounds overconfident for 12 soldiers against an army. That is what I thought, Vecco agreed. But then I watched the humans change. It happened in seconds. Their soft faces went blank. Their eyes became flat and cold like dead things. Their movements became sharp and precise. It was like watching machines activate. The burned Balaxian made a hissing sound. The switch. Every human has it. Vecco nodded. I did not understand then. I do now. Humans carry something inside them. Something ancient and terrible. Most of the time, they keep it locked away. They smile and laugh and make art and raise families. But when danger comes, they open a door inside themselves, and something else comes out. He looked at Tila directly. I watched those 12 humans walk toward 15,000 enemies. They did not run. They did not hide. They walked. And in their eyes, I saw nothing but cold, patient death. Tila had stopped writing. Her recording device was forgotten in her hand. What happened next? Vecco finished his drink in one long swallow. Next, I learned why every species in this galaxy should pray that humans remain friendly. Because the alternative is extinction. The cantina remained silent. Outside, ships came and went from Thornax Station. Inside, an old soldier prepared to share the most terrifying days of his life. And somewhere in the station, a group of human tourists laughed and took pictures of the stars, completely unaware of the fear their species inspired in half the galaxy. The memory was sharp like broken glass. Vecco could still smell the smoke and blood. He could still hear the screaming. Kareth 7 was a dusty brown world with 3 suns. The mining colony sat in a valley between 2 mountain ranges. 20,000 workers lived there, digging precious metals from the ground. It was boring work in a boring place. Vecco had hated every moment of his assignment. Then the sky filled with enemy ships, and he would have given anything to be bored again. The hegemony landed their forces at dawn. Vecco watched from the command center as thousands of enemy soldiers poured out of transport ships. They were Kelrathi, a warrior species with thick armor plates and 4 arms ending in razor claws. Each one stood 3 meters tall. They lived for battle and conquest. The colony's defenders gathered in the central plaza. Vecco stood with other supply officers near the back. He held a rifle he barely knew how to use. His hands were shaking. The human soldiers arrived last. They walked in a single line, their boots making soft sounds on the dusty ground. Vecco counted them. 12. Just 12. Against an army. Their leader was Lieutenant Park Do-hun. He was a small human with black hair and calm eyes. He smiled as he approached the defensive line, like he was greeting old friends. Good morning, Park said to the alien soldiers around him. Beautiful day for a fight. A Drellian officer near Vecco made a confused sound. There are 15,000 enemies. We have less than 1,000 defenders. How is this a good day? Park's smile did not change. Because they have to come to us, and we have something they do not. What? Park looked at his human soldiers. They stood perfectly still, their faces blank, their eyes fixed on the approaching enemy. Patience, creativity, and about 200,000 years of practice killing things that are bigger than us. He turned and walked toward the front line. His soldiers followed without a word. Veko watched them set up positions. A small female human named Kim Yuna unpacked enough explosives to destroy a city block. She hummed a quiet song as she worked. A young male called Huang Teho checked his medical supplies and smiled at everyone who passed. Why are you smiling? Veko asked him. We are going to die. Teho looked at him with genuine confusion. We are not going to die. The lieutenant said no one dies today except the enemy. But there are so many of them. Teho shrugged. There are always many of them. That just means more targets. The first attack came at midday. The Kelrathi charged in waves, their war cries shaking the ground. They expected the defenders to break and run. They expected an easy victory. They were wrong. The humans opened fire with mechanical precision. Each shot found its target. No wasted ammunition. No panic. They moved like water, flowing from cover to cover. Always shooting. Never stopping. Kim Yuna waited until the first wave reached a narrow pass between two buildings. Then she pressed a button on her detonator. The explosion killed 200 enemies in a single second. She was already setting up her next trap before the dust settled. A Kelrathi warrior broke through the line and charged at Park Do-hun. The alien was 3 times his size, with claws that could cut through metal. Park did not run. He did not even raise his rifle. He simply stepped to the side at the last moment and put 3 bullets into the weak point under the warrior's arm. The Kelrathi fell. Park stepped over the body and kept firing. Veko had never seen anything like it. The humans moved through battle like they had been born for it. They took wounds that would have killed other species and kept fighting. Teho treated his own bullet wound while dragging an injured ally to safety, his free hand still firing at the enemy. The first attack failed. The second attack failed. The third attack failed. By evening, the ground was covered with enemy dead. The humans had not lost a single soldier. Veko found Park cleaning his weapon near the command center. The human's uniform was covered in blood, but his hands were steady. How? Veko asked. How did you do that? Park looked up at him. For a moment, Veko saw something behind his calm expression. Something old and dark and hungry. Humans evolved on a death world, Park said quietly. Everything on our planet wanted to kill us. The animals, the weather, the plants, even the water. We should have gone extinct 1,000 times. But we did not. He finished cleaning his weapon and stood up. Do you know why? Veko shook his head. Because we learned to be more dangerous than everything that hunted us. We learned to work together. We learned to make tools. We learned to think ahead. And most importantly, we learned to never, ever give up. Park smiled. And it was not a friendly smile. The Kelrathi think they are predators. They are not. They are prey that has never met a real predator. That night, Veko could not sleep. He lay awake thinking about Park's words. He thought about the humans moving through battle without fear. He thought about their flat, dead eyes, and their steady hands. For the first time, he understood something important. The galaxy was full of dangerous species. Warriors and hunters and killers. But none of them were truly dangerous. They were just animals following their instincts. Humans were different. Humans chose to be dangerous. They could turn it on and off like a light. They could smile and laugh and play with children. Then pick up a weapon and become something terrifying. And that choice, that control, was what made them the most frightening species in the universe. The siege of Kareth 7 was just beginning. Veko did not know it yet. But the worst was still to come. The hegemony would try new tactics. They would use psychological warfare. They would try to break the defenders through fear and exhaustion. They would learn that humans do not break. They bend. They adapt. They survive. And then they strike back with everything they have. In the darkness of the alien night, 12 humans slept peacefully while an army surrounded them. They were not afraid. The enemy should have been. 3 weeks into the siege, the defenders retreated underground. The mining tunnels beneath Kareth 7 became their fortress. Dark passages and narrow corridors where the enemy's numbers meant nothing. Veko had lost track of time. Day and night were meaningless underground. There was only the endless waiting and the sudden violence of enemy attacks. The hegemony had changed tactics. They no longer sent waves of soldiers to die in the tunnels. Instead, they tried to break the defenders without fighting. First came the broadcasts. Enemy speakers played messages at all hours. Surrender and live. Fight and die slowly. Your families will never see you again. The words echoed through the tunnels like poison. The alien soldiers began to crack. A Tremari officer stopped eating. A group of Balaxian miners started whispering about surrender. Fear spread like a disease. The humans did not crack. They gathered in small groups and played card games. They told jokes and laughed at things Veko did not understand. When the enemy broadcast started, they simply turned up their music louder. Corporal Bake Somi was the quietest of them. She was a sniper. Small and thin, with dark circles under her eyes. She had not slept in 4 days. Her hands never stopped shaking, but when she looked through her scope, she became perfectly still. Veko watched her take out an enemy officer from over 2 kilometers away. The target was hidden behind a rock formation, barely visible in the darkness. Somi fired once. The officer fell. "How did you see him?" Veko asked. "It was completely dark." Somi shrugged. Sound carries differently around obstacles. His breathing was creating a slight echo pattern. Also, his body heat was warming the rock slightly. I could see the temperature difference. She looked at Veko with exhausted eyes. Humans are good at finding things to kill. It is what we evolved to do. Choi Minho was the unit's engineer. He was a large human with thick arms and a permanent frown. While others rested, he worked. He took apart enemy weapons and rebuilt them into something new. He found mining equipment and turned it into deadly traps. One morning, Veko found him building something in a storage room. It was a long tube with wires and scrap metal welded together. It looked like garbage. "What is that?" Veko asked. "Railgun," Minho said without looking up. "Electromagnetic acceleration. Should punch through Kelrothi armor at 300 meters. Should?" Minho finally looked at him. His expression was completely serious. "It might also explode. We will find out." The railgun did not explode. It worked perfectly. Minho used it to destroy an enemy tank that was blocking a tunnel entrance. The hegemony grew desperate. They began executing prisoners within sight of the tunnel entrances. They left bodies hanging as warnings. They screamed threats into the darkness. Lieutenant Park called a meeting. His soldiers gathered in a small chamber, their faces lit by chemical lights. "They are trying to scare us," Park said calmly. "It will not work, but it tells us something important. They are afraid. An army of 15,000 is afraid of 12 humans and a few hundred miners." Kim Yuna grinned. It was not a nice grin. "They should be afraid. I have been saving something special for them. What do you have in mind?" "Night raids." Yuna's eyes glittered in the dim light. "We go out there while they sleep. We leave messages. We remind them that nowhere is safe." Park considered this. Then he nodded. "Do it. Take volunteers only." Every human volunteered. Of course they did. The night raids became legend. The humans crept through enemy camps, like ghosts. They did not kill many soldiers. That was not the point. Instead, they left signs. Symbols drawn in dirt, equipment sabotaged, weapons disabled. One morning, the hegemony officers woke to find a message written on the ground of their command tent. It said, "We were here. We could have killed you. We chose not to." This time, the message was written in enemy blood. Veko heard the stories from intercepted communications. Enemy soldiers were refusing to sleep. They jumped at shadows. They accused each other of being human spies. The fear was destroying them from inside. "Why do you not just kill them?" Veko asked Park one night. "You could end this faster." Park shook his head. "Dead soldiers are replaced. Terrified soldiers spread fear to others. We are not fighting their army. We are fighting their will to continue." "That seems cruel." Park was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "War is cruel. We did not start this, but we will finish it. And if being terrifying keeps my people alive, then I will be the most terrifying thing these enemies have ever seen." A captured enemy officer was brought before the human command post. He was a high-ranking Kelrathi, covered in medals and honors. He had led 1,000 battles. Now he was shaking. His armor plates rattled against each other. "Please," he begged. "Execute me. Give me a clean death. Do not give me to them." Park looked confused. "Give you to who?" "Your hunters. The ones who come at night. The ones who appear and disappear like spirits." The officer's voice broke. "They do not stop. They do not sleep. They remember every face. They always come back." Park glanced at his soldiers. Somi was sharpening her knife. Minho was eating a ration bar. Teho was writing a letter home with a gentle smile. "Those are not hunters," Park said quietly. "Those are just humans. And this is what we do when you threaten people under our protection." The officer made a sound that might have been a sob. "What are you?" Park did not answer. But Veko saw something flicker in his eyes. Pride. Satisfaction. And something darker. Something that enjoyed the fear. The siege continued. Weeks turned into a month. The defenders grew thin and tired. But they did not break. And somewhere in the darkness, the humans kept hunting. Patient. Relentless. Inevitable. They were just getting started. Day 47 of the siege. The message came through the damaged communication system like a miracle. Evacuation ships were coming. Help was finally on the way. But there was a problem. The ships would arrive in 6 hours. The hegemony had intercepted the same transmission. They knew rescue was coming. They would launch everything they had to finish the defenders before help arrived. Veko stood in the command chamber with the other surviving officers. The humans were there too, gathered in a small group near the back. They listened without expression as the situation was explained. "They will attack through the main tunnel," the Tremari commander said. His voice was tired and defeated. "It is the only path large enough for their vehicles. If they break through, they will reach the civilian shelters in minutes. Everyone dies. Then we hold the tunnel," Park said simply. The commander shook his head. "We do not have enough soldiers. We do not have enough ammunition. We do not have enough anything. The tunnel is 200 meters long. They will overwhelm us through sheer numbers. Then we hold until we cannot hold anymore. And then we hold some more." Han Jiwoo spoke up. She was the communications officer. A thin woman with quick eyes. She had been intercepting enemy transmissions for weeks. "I have been listening to their command channel. They are bringing 5,000 soldiers for the final assault. Heavy vehicles. Artillery. Everything." The room went quiet. 5,000 against the few hundred defenders that remained. It was hopeless. Park turned to his soldiers. "I need volunteers for the rear guard. 5 people to hold the tunnel, while everyone else evacuates." Every human raised their hand. All 12 of them. No hesitation, no questions. Veko felt something twist in his chest. "You cannot be serious. 5 humans against 5,000? It is suicide." "Maybe," Park agreed. "But 800 civilians will escape. That is the trade. 5 lives for 800. It is simple math." "It is not simple. It is impossible." Park smiled. It was the same calm smile he always wore. But now Veko understood what was behind it. Not overconfidence. Not madness. Just acceptance. The humans had already decided they might die here. They had made peace with it long ago. Humans are good at impossible things, Park said. We built our civilization on doing impossible things. This is just one more. He chose his team. Himself. Kim Yuna with her explosives. Baek Somi with her rifle. Choi Minho with his improvised weapons. And Yoon Sunho, the youngest soldier, who had just turned 19. Sunho was a quiet boy who smiled too much and wrote letters to his mother every night. When Park called his name, he simply nodded and checked his weapon. You do not have to do this, Veko told him. You are young. You have your whole life ahead of you. Sunho looked at him with old eyes and a young face. My mother taught me something when I was small. She said that courage is not about being unafraid. It is about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. He paused. I am very afraid. But those civilians need time to escape, and I can give them time. What else matters? The evacuation began. Hundreds of civilians and soldiers moved through the back tunnels toward the landing zone. Medics carried the wounded. Parents carried children. Everyone moved as fast as they could. Veko was supposed to go with them. He was a supply officer, not a fighter. His duty was to survive and help with the evacuation. Instead, he found himself walking toward the main tunnel, toward the 5 humans preparing for their last stand. I want to help, he said. Park looked at him with something like respect. No. You have done enough. Your people need you to survive and tell this story. Someone has to remember what happened here. I do not want to remember. I want to fight. Then fight by living. Fight by making sure the galaxy knows what humans will do for their friends. Park put a hand on Veko's shoulder. The touch was surprisingly gentle. Go. Get the civilians to safety. And when you are old and someone asks about the humans of Kareth 7, you tell them we were here. You tell them we did not run. Veko wanted to argue. But he saw the truth in Park's eyes. This was not a negotiation. This was a final request. I will remember, Veko said. I will tell everyone. That is all we ask. Veko turned and walked away. He did not look back. He could not bear to. The last thing he heard was Park's voice calling out to his team. All right, everyone. Let us show these invaders what happens when they corner humans. Kim. How many explosives do we have left? Enough to make them regret being born, Yuna replied cheerfully. Perfect. Minho. Is the railgun charged? Always. Somi. How many rounds? 300, give or take. Make them count. Sunho. Ready, sir. Good. Then let us get to work. Veko reached the evacuation ships just as the attack began. He heard the explosions from kilometers away. He heard the gunfire, constant and rhythmic like a heartbeat. He heard human war cries echoing through the stone. The battle lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of continuous fighting. The evacuation ships waited, their pilots too afraid to leave without knowing the result. 847 civilians and soldiers escaped that day. They flew away from Kareth 7 and did not look back. When the rescue fleet finally arrived, they found the main tunnel choked with enemy dead. 3,000 Kelrathi soldiers lay in piles, their bodies torn apart by bullets and explosions and improvised weapons. And at the center of the carnage, still standing, still fighting, were 5 humans. They were covered in blood. Their ammunition was gone. They were using enemy weapons, enemy knives, their bare hands. They were wounded in dozens of places. But they were alive. When the rescue soldiers reached them, Park looked up with exhausted eyes. Took you long enough, he said. We were starting to get bored. Then he collapsed. All 5 humans survived. The medics called it impossible. The military analysts called it unprecedented. The enemy called it terrifying. The humans called it Tuesday. The cantina was completely silent. Tila had stopped breathing somewhere during the story. Her recording device sat forgotten on the table, its light blinking softly in the dim room. Veko stared at his empty glass. The memories were still fresh, even after 30 cycles. Some wounds never healed. 19 hours, he said quietly. They held for 19 hours total, 5 humans against an entire army. When the rescue teams found them, they were standing in a mountain of enemy dead, 3,000 Kelrathi soldiers, killed by 5 exhausted, wounded humans who refused to die. Tila finally found her voice. That is impossible. I thought so too. I was there when the medical ships picked them up. Park had 7 bullet wounds. Kim Yuna had a broken arm and 3 cracked ribs. Somi had lost so much blood that the doctors did not understand how she was still conscious. Minho had shrapnel embedded in his chest. Young Sunho had a piece of metal through his leg that he had wrapped with torn cloth and ignored. Veko looked up at the other veterans in the cantina. They were all listening, their drinks forgotten. The rescue commander asked Park how they survived. Do you know what he said? Veko paused. He said, "We had a job to do. We do not stop until the job is done." The burned Balaxian spoke up. What happened to them? After the war? Veko smiled. It was a sad smile, full of memories. I stayed in contact with them for many cycles. We exchanged messages. Sometimes we met on space stations when our paths crossed. They became my friends. Unsigned. We have not we o summer. Unsigned. He took a deep breath. Park retired from the military and became a teacher. He teaches young humans about history and philosophy. He says war is terrible and no one should glorify it. Kim Yuna opened a bakery on Earth. She makes pastries and wedding cakes. She told me she wanted to spend the rest of her life creating things instead of destroying them. Bake Somi teaches art to children. She says their paintings help her forget the faces in her scope. Choi Minho became an engineer for civilian ships. He builds things that help people travel safely, instead of weapons that kill. Huang Taeho opened a clinic for injured animals. He rescues creatures that no one else will help. And Yoon Sunho? Veko's voice grew soft. He went home to his mother. He married a kind woman and had 3 children. He works as a farmer now, growing food for his community. He still writes letters, but now they are to his children instead of his mother. Tila was struggling to understand. But they were killers. They were terrifying. How can they just become normal people? That is the truth about humans, Veko said. That is what makes them so frightening. They do not stay monsters. They are not locked into violence like the Kelrathi or the hegemony warriors. They can turn it off. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. Do you understand what that means? They can smile and laugh and raise children and create beautiful things. They can be gentle and kind and loving, but somewhere inside every human is a door. Behind that door is something ancient, something that remembers when they were small and weak on a world full of predators. Veko's compound eyes glittered in the dim light. They learn to become the thing that predators fear. They learn to be more dangerous than anything that hunted them. And they carry that ability with them always, waiting to be used. The humans I fought with were not cruel. They did not enjoy killing. But they were willing to do it. They were willing to become something terrifying to protect the people they cared about. And when the danger passed, they put that part of themselves away and went back to being gentle. He sat back in his chair. That is why every species in this galaxy should pray that humans remain friendly. Not because they are strong or technologically advanced, because they are unpredictable. Because you can never truly know what a human is capable of until you threaten something they love. The cantina door opened. A young human male walked in, wearing casual tourist clothes and a bright smile. He had a camera around his neck and a confused expression on his face. Excuse me, he said in broken Drellian. I am looking for the observatory deck? I think I am lost. Every veteran in the cantina went still. The Korthan's hand moved toward his weapon instinctively. The Tremari in the hover chair rolled backward slightly. Even the bartender, a species known for being completely fearless, took a step away. The human noticed the reaction. His smile faded into confusion. Is something wrong? Did I say something offensive? I apologize. My Drellian is not very good. No, Veko said. His voice was carefully calm. You said nothing wrong. The observatory is 2 levels up. Take the left elevator. The human's smile returned. Thank you. You are very kind. Have a wonderful day. He waved cheerfully and walked out. The cantina remained silent for a long moment after he left. Veko raised his glass. It was empty, but the gesture mattered. To the humans, may they always remain our friends. Every veteran in the cantina raised their drinks. To the humans, they drank in silence. Tila finally turned off her recording device. Her hands were shaking slightly. Why do you think they are like this? The humans, I mean. Why are they so different from every other species? Veko considered the question for a long moment. I asked Park that once. He thought about it for a long time before answering. He said that humans know something that most species do not understand. What? He said that humans know they are not immortal. They know their lives are short. They know that everything they love will someday end. Veko closed his eyes. He said that knowledge makes them desperate. Desperate to protect what matters. Desperate to make their short lives mean something. Desperate to leave the universe a little better than they found it. He opened his eyes and looked at Tila directly. Humans are terrifying because they are afraid. They are afraid of losing the people they love. They are afraid of their children suffering. They are afraid of dying without making a difference. And that fear makes them capable of anything. Tila gathered her recording equipment slowly. Her movements were thoughtful, careful. Thank you for sharing this story. I will make sure the galaxy hears it. Make sure they understand, Veko said. This is not a story about war. It is a story about what happens when ordinary people decide that some things are worth dying for. The humans I knew were not special soldiers. They were teachers and bakers and farmers who happened to know how to fight. That is the lesson. Any human can become what I saw on Kareth 7. Any one of them. Tila nodded and walked toward the door. She paused at the entrance and looked back. One last question. After everything you witnessed, after everything they did, are you afraid of humans? Veko was quiet for a long moment. Outside, he could hear human tourists laughing as they explored the station. Ordinary sounds. Happy sounds. Yes, he finally said. I am terrified of them. And I love them like family. Both things are true. Both things will always be true. Tila left. The cantina slowly returned to normal. Veterans talked quietly. Music played. Life continued. But somewhere in the corner, an old Drellian soldier sat alone with his memories. He thought about 12 humans walking toward impossible odds. He thought about gentle people who could become terrifying. He thought about friends who had taught him what courage really meant. And he hoped, with all his ancient heart, that the galaxy would never have to learn what happened when humans decided something was worth fighting for, because he had seen that war. And nothing in the universe was more beautiful, or more terrible, than humans protecting what they loved.